Hello, everybody. This is Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for tuning in to the Defiant Lawyers. As you see, we're going to be talking about Jim Crow 3.0, how the GOP attacks blacks. That is today's topic. Hang in there. It's going to be exciting. All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Defiant Lawyers. I am Attorney Augustus Corbett, aka the Minister of Justice, and with me I have.
And I am attorney Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice.
And together we are the Defiant Lawyers. Each and every week, we provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy an unjust legal system, bringing you the best legal talk on social media each and every week. Go ahead and subscribe. What are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that button. And when you come in, like, share, comment, tell everybody about the Defiant Lawyers. You don't get it nowhere else the way you get it right here on the Defiant Lawyers. Chloe, would you agree with that?
I would. And look, y'all, we have a TikTok too, and our TikTok is popping. So why don't you all go over there, like our TikTok? We're going to be posting all types of clips from this show, original clips. Trust me, you want to get engaged. The TikTok is the same as it is here, the Defiant Lawyers. So go like our TikTok too. We getting in that game.
Yeah, Chloe, we put a couple videos up here recently, and the TikTok channel wasn't doing very much. And then we put a couple videos up, and one video we put up here maybe 2 days ago got almost 40,000 views and a bunch of likes and comments. And the TikTok channel grew almost 1,000 followers almost overnight.
Yeah.
So it's exploding in growth, or at least, now of course I see some other folks got 1.5 million followers, and 1,000 to them would be nothing. But for us overnight to gain 1,000 folks, that was pretty big. So
And we
yeah.
really appreciate it because I mean, anytime someone takes time out of their day to listen to us, to engage with us, um, I appreciate it and we do not take it for granted. And we love to see the rebel community continuing to grow and increase every day. So thank you all for that. And thank you all for listening to us and being loyal viewers. We really appreciate it.
Yes. So I want to shout out my wife, your mother, Tony Corbett, sweetheart. As always, we see you here. Um, Glad to
Hey
have you.
mama.
Yes. So we got an exciting show today, Chloe. Um, we can't stop. We can't stop warning African American folks about all the GOP does to hold us back or to turn back the hands of time, to take us back to when, as they say, at a time where they said America was great, right? So, make America great again. America was great again in their minds when black folks knew their position and stayed in it. We're getting a little bit too grown for our britches. for the GOP. So they're trying to put us back where we belong, and we got to sound the alarm. When I sound the alarm, Chloe, I'm thinking about you, and I'm thinking about my grandchildren when I get some. You follow me?
Hmm.
That's what it's all about. It's about the next generation.
And it's so predictable too, because whenever Black people make some progress, that's when a focus on segregation comes. We saw after, the abolishment of slavery back in the mid 1800s, we had the Reconstruction period, and then in the later part of the 1800s, early 1900s, we had the Jim Crow laws. We had a Black president in 2008, and then after his presidency, again, we see this white nationalist, white supremacy coming back. So it's always so predictable. Whenever we're making progress, when they want to try to attack us and segregate us, and we're seeing it now today. So that's why we're calling this Jim Crow 3.0, because it is the third cycle and it's predictable.
Yes, it's called white backlash.
Yes, yes.
And you're so right because it actually started in my lifetime. I've probably seen white backlash at least 3 times. I saw it in the 70s in response to the 60s, because the 60s saw all the passages of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. And so the 70s and 80s, especially the 80s, I probably should say the 80s, because it was in the 80s when Ronald Reagan was elected, and he was a racist. I mean, he was a white supremacist. I remember very well when he was elected. And he began to try to turn things back, and whites elected him because, again, of white backlash, again, in response to the civil rights movement of the 50s and the 60s. And the 70s, believe it or not, Chloe, was like Reconstruction, not quite on that level, but Reconstruction after slavery. I mean, it was a time when Black Americans were feeling good about themselves, and it was the big afros and the bell bottoms, and just things just felt good. James Brown even came out with a song, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." And then, boom, here comes Ronald Reagan.
Mm.
And
And there
then,
goes the drugs in our communities and all of that.
yes. And
Yeah.
then after the election of Barack Obama, who we get next? Donald Trump.
Mm.
So I've seen backlash at least those 2 times, probably 3 if I think about it hard.
Yeah. And it's with Donald Trump is the emboldenment of the backlash as well, because now we have, the Candace Owens, we have the Tucker Carlsons, we have the Ben Shapiro's, we have all of these people on the screen right now, who feel emboldened to really try to tamper down all of the progress that the Black community has made. And that's what we wanted to get into today. Look at the people on those screens, on your screen. That's who we're talking about.
And Chloe, the thing that sort of gets me here a little bit fired up is it feels like African Americans don't really understand what is really going on because we're too quiet. We're not saying enough. Right after the unfortunate lynching of George Floyd, the streets filled with protesters, and it went on for months. I'm not, saying anything positive about any looting or anything like that, but the protesting was through the roof. You had blacks, you had whites, and folks even around the world. Well, what happened to Mr. Floyd was horrendous. What's happening right now to our rights, you could say, are even more consequential because they impact not just one person, but a whole ethnicity. And so I wonder, where are the protesters now? Do we not get it? Do we not understand what let's say, let's put Ron DeSantis is doing down in Florida or what Greg Abbott is doing here in Texas. I mean, these men are literally implementing Jim Crow 3.0, Chloe.
They are. And here's the issue that I've had with what the Black community has done in regards to these issues since the 60s to 50s, since the civil rights movement. We know that protesting is important because it gets the powers that be looking and talking. But we need to do more than that. We need to be voting. We need to be on in positions of power. We need to be running in these local elections because recently now, Dad, the way that this Jim Crow 3.0 is being implemented, it's on the local level. It's on the school boards. It's on the city council. It is, what is being taught to our children, and it is the erasure of Black history in our schools. That's where the outrage needs to be, and that's where our focus needs to be. The protesting is important because it shows how it's affected us emotionally, but we need to be out in the streets in terms of voting and being in positions of power so that this erasure can stop. That's the issue that I've had a lot of times with the protests throughout the years. Whenever there's police brutality, whenever there's a shooting, we need to go beyond that.
Man, that is profound. And when you look at the civil rights movement, it proves what you're saying because you had a concerted effort by different groups of people. You had, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the streets. You had Thurgood Marshall in the courts. You had SNCC in the restaurants, desegregating lunch counters. You had them registering people to vote. You had A.W. Phillips Randolph, who was working in the business community. So on all levels, we were doing more than one thing, not just protesting, as you said. We were registering people to vote. We were winning victories in the courts. We were protesting in the streets, putting pressure on the politicians. And the pressure became so great that they eventually signed into law 3 very important civil rights laws. So what you said is just it
It's just
I,
the truth.
yeah.
It's just the truth. And I feel like also, um, in terms of the Black community recently, because we have made such economic strides, because we have, gotten into the suburbs and a lot of Black people are, excelling in their careers, it's kind of made us a little complacent in terms of the voting, registering people to vote, changing the laws, all of the things that needs to be behind a protest movement. And so we have the fire, we recognize the injustices, but where are the people who are going to be actually putting boots on the ground and doing the work? That's what's missing. Because the GOP, they have that. They have a strategy, they have a plan. The strategy now is, like I said before, you know, going at the local level, getting in the schools, getting on the school boards, not teaching African American history, not teaching about the true atrocities of slavery. That's the strategy and implementation that they've made, and it's making strides in this country. And we need to do the same for those of us who care about racial justice and the Black community.
You on fire today, girl. You on fire today. I mean, you on fire every week, but I mean, you are putting it out there today. Um,
Yeah.
which one of these folks right here do you think is doing the most damage to the Black community?
Mm, man, that's a good question. I would say from the top, Clarence Thomas, because he literally sits on the highest court in the land. and the decisions that he makes with the other justices has a profound impact on American society, and the way they're interpreting all of the laws and the cases that come before them has a profound effect. And then in terms of the culture, I gotta go with Kanye West and Candace Owens because look, I've been a fan of Kanye for a long time in terms of his music. I didn't agree with a lot of what he said politically or his personal views, but in terms of his music, I thought he was a musical genius. Um, but the fact that he's now linked up with Candace Owens and the effect that he has on culture and what they says, it is it's changing people's lives, and that's something that we cannot ignore. That's something that we need to focus on. And look, everyone has seen recently all of the comments that Kanye has made, wearing the White Lives Matter shirt, making the anti-Semitic remarks, falsely saying that George Floyd died from fentanyl instead of that officer being on his neck. That is things that are getting in our communities and is having an impact and changing our culture. And I saw recently, Dad. So we discussed last week how the George Floyd family sent a cease and desist letter to Kanye West and will be filing a $250 million lawsuit Floyd's family for her own defamation, claiming that they are defaming her and Kanye for protecting George Floyd's legacy and his daughter. I mean, just the warpness of that is it's astounding. Did you hear about that? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that, and I think it's horrendous um, for Kanye West to do that. I think it's disrespectful to his family. It's very painful for his family, especially his daughter. Um, they're still grieving over George Floyd. The world has moved on, the country has moved on, but they still deal with the loss of Mr. Floyd. And the jury said, the jury said flat out that, um, hold on, we're having some issues here with our um, technology. But the jury said flat out that Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, not fentanyl. We discussed this last week. They rejected, the jury rejected the fentanyl argument. They heard from the medical experts and they said no, it was the the knee on the neck of George Floyd that took his life. And so for these two individuals to come back and to say that it wasn't, the jury got it wrong. They weren't they were not in the courtroom, not for one moment, I don't think, yet they know better than the jury. And
Yeah.
then Derek Chauvin himself pled guilty to violate Mr. Floyd's civil rights. And the other three officers were found guilty, were convicted. So it flies in the face of the legal process. It's disrespectful to the family and to the legal process.
And it's hypocritical too because Owens, she's a self-proclaimed conservative, respect the laws. We're a nation of laws. The jury came out with its verdict. It heard all of the evidence in the case or heard testimony from expert witnesses about exactly the way that George Floyd died. And yet she comes out with the documentary and makes all of these statements claiming that George Floyd died with fentanyl. So it's really she is the one who is weakening, American society, American customs, by trying to convince people that the jury was wrong and not honoring what the jury's verdict was. They were the ones who sat in that courtroom for hours and days and made this decision. So it's hypocritical on his face as well.
Excellent observation. Conservatives talk about law and order. You know, the law spoke. The law found Derek Chauvin guilty. So they're doing just what you said, hypocritically saying, no, law didn't get it right this time. I mean, they got a right to say that, but respect the process.
Yeah.
That's what the conservatives say we ought to do. Now, who do I think is the most dangerous person on this? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the guy in the background.
Mm.
I think it's
Okay.
Donald Trump.
Okay.
Donald Trump has set into motion all of the hubris, the unashamedness, the unapologetic white supremacy that we see happening with white Americans, many white Americans, not all, many white Americans. He basically said to them, stop apologizing for being white supremacists. We conquered this country. Don't apologize. Don't take down the monuments and the statues to the people who conquered this great country and tamed it. Be proud to be a white supremacist. We are the greatest people in the world, God's gift to humanity. So get out there and fight, because you ain't going to have a country if you don't fight. Those are the exact sentiments that brought about January 6th. And those are the exact sentiments that would, let me go back to the photo, that would cause a man, if you look at the top row of people, and we'll come back to Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, but come over to the third guy, Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. Trump's encouragement to white supremacists to come out of the closet is the only reason that he would stand during a campaign stop for another white politician and say that the Democrats, want crime and they want to give reparations to the people who are committing the crimes. Of course, he was talking about black folks. So he literally, in that comment, called black people criminals. A sitting United States senator in 2022 called black folks criminals. And not only did he do that, he said, essentially, we'll never give these criminals reparations. That is so loaded. That statement is so loaded on so many different levels, we don't even have the time to really get into it. But just in case, there are some folks who don't get it. Just in case, black folks do not commit most of the crime in this country. It is true that black folks commit quite a bit of amount of crime in this country, despite being a small percentage of the country, about 14%. And unfortunately, because of issues like poverty, because of issues like broken families, failed schools, and just 400 years of oppression has destabilized the black community, resulting in, yes, quite a bit of crime in our communities. But it doesn't make up most of the crime in the country. That's still done by whites. And the thing that gets me with white conservatives is they don't want to take any responsibility for how white supremacy, 400 years of it, 250 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, and then another 60 or so years of Jim Crow 2.0, now Jim Crow 3.0. It's like that has nothing to do with problems that you see in the African American community. Their racist attitude is those things occur in our community because we're just those kind of people, genetically, biologically, morally. We're just those kind of people.
Mm. And it's a lie. It is a lie. And that's what they're doing, that they are, and I can't get away from this. They are erasing Black history from this country, and it not being taught, and focusing on Black history not being taught in our schools, that we go beyond just what, us being brought in chains to this country. There's a whole continent with history and kingdoms and education, the motherland, Africa, that is not being taught to our own people. So we don't even know it ourselves. So unfortunately, they've been really good at erasing us from knowing who we are from the inside. And then we playing into their depiction of us as well. And then it goes down into these practical levels, like where they're showing, all of the crime that so-called Black people commit. And it's just unfortunate. And it really stood out to me the other day. I was watching a Fox News clip. Jesse Waters was interviewing Stephen A. Smith. I like Stephen A. Smith. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he's entertaining to me. And he's been in the media a lot because I think he has a book out or something.
And
But
Jesse Waters is a Fox News
yeah,
commentator, journalist, newsman, whatever you want to call
yeah, exactly. And throughout the entire interview, when he's talking to Stephen A about various issues, politics, sports, all of that, all they had in the background, that was like surveillance footage, camera footage of these young Black guys committing crimes, robbing people, putting guns out. That's what they had in the background. So in my head, I'm like, if this is what a white person is watching, or anyone who's watching day in, day out, with these images of these Black boys and men committing these crimes, no wonder they believe our community is like that. And it's a concerted effort to get people to believe that we are just criminals genetically, that it's just our culture. And it just struck me how it was just playing in the background. The topic it wasn't even about talking about Black people. It was something else. But those images were continuing to play over and over and over again. That's the type of stuff we're talking about.
So that brings me to Tucker Carlson, who maybe you said that Clarence Thomas was, in your opinion, the most dangerous man on this up here because he sits on the high court and they make the law and everything flows basically from that institution, U.S. Supreme Court. And then I said Donald Trump, in my opinion, may be the most dangerous person up here. Then I would go to Tucker Carlson, and it's for what you just said. Tucker Carlson has a very, very highly rated show, him and Sean Hannity. And they speak to millions of people every day in and day out, just what you said. And they're putting out that garbage and putting out those images. And if you're seeing it, if you're looking at that, if that's what you're feeding on, if you're in that echo chamber every day, it's going to definitely impact the way you see African American people. That's one of the ways that the GOP attacks Blacks. They use the media very, very skillfully, very effectively. Um, Now, Stephen A. Stephen A. is cool with me. I saw that he was doing some interviews with Fox. I saw him for a few minutes interview, I think, with Sean Hannity
Yeah.
um, a week or so ago. I mean, Do you think Stephen A. should have thought more about that than sitting on a program talking with a commentator, a Fox News commentator, as the show is using Stephen A.'s credibility and his platform to put out those negative images that you just described? Do you think Stephen A. should have given that more thought?
Yeah, he does, but you can tell now Stephen A. I mean, he's rich. He's not in the trenches anymore. Yeah, he comes from Brooklyn, but um
Queens.
Queens. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Queens.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not in it anymore. I mean, he's comfortable, he's making money, all of that. So, and I mean, he's buddy buddy with these people. I saw that Sean Hannity interview. He says Sean is one of his good friends, closest buddies, and he defends him. So, from what I can tell, at least publicly, on a lot of on things of issues like this, I mean, Stephen A. is not going to be the one that kind of speaks out and steps out.
It's sad.
Yeah.
That's
And I
sad.
saw in an interview that Stephen A. did on the Breakfast Club that his number one thing that he wanted to do when he was young was be a lawyer.
I saw that.
Yeah, he wanted to be a lawyer. But journalism kind of came up to him unexpectedly. But to go from that passion for wanting to be a lawyer, like some of our most famous black lawyers, to kind of being buddy buddy with the likes of Sean Hannity, the contrast is pretty big as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he said dyslexia, pardon me.
Mm.
Dyslexia was the reason why he said, "Hey, I don't think I can do that." So he became a journalist. But yeah, just allowing Fox News to use his credibility, use his influence and platform to put up those images, because that stuff didn't just go out to Fox News folks; it went also to Stephen A.'s people.
Hmm. That's why I saw it.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So, who do you want to discuss next here?
Man, the pick of the litter. Let's do Ron DeSantis
Okay. Yes, that's a
be-
good one.
because I feel like he's the next Trump, and he's doing a lot of anti-black things in Florida, very similar to our governor Greg Abbott, with erasing Black history out of Florida schools, um, being anti-black, and other specific policies in one of the most diverse states in the country with a huge Black population. And he, unlike Trump, he's kind of smooth with it. You can tell that he's intelligent. He's well thought out. So the anti-blackness that he does is a little bit more smooth. And he's probably able to do more. And I think that he's the next celebrity politician figure in the Republican Party. It would not surprise me at all if he runs for president in 2024. So he is one that we really need to look out for trying to bring Jim Crow 3.0, especially if he runs for president.
Yes, I ditto every bit of that. He also has been behind racial gerrymandering in Florida. He pushed through the Florida legislature a very racist voting map that essentially got rid of one of Florida's majority voting districts. And he literally did that. So it really is Jim Crow 3.0 that he and Greg Abbott are implementing in these states. And again, I'm gonna go back to the frustration I feel when I don't see Black Americans doing much of anything about it. There should be outrage in the pulpits. There should be, as you pointed out, not just street street protesting, but pulpits. The preachers should be speaking against it. Um, the business owners, these wealthy African Americans should be using their platform and influence to talk about it. Um, the um, um, educators You know, they're in a very dubious situation in some of these states, like Florida and Texas, because they better not. They'll get fired, even get prosecuted. And I
Mm,
saw a story this morning where Florida is arresting people for voting.
mm,
I saw that this morning on the Tiffany Cross show on MSNBC, where they're literally getting arrested. The police are picking up people, putting them in handcuffs in Florida for voting.
mm.
They're not playing. They're not playing. Black people can sit back and do nothing, but we'll look up and won't be able to vote. We've been sounding the alarm for a long time of how they've gutted the Voting Rights Act, how they have, like you said, completely changed what can be taught in school. They're hitting, the areas. There's this white preacher, Chloe, named Lance Wallnall, and Lance Wallnall about the seven mountains, and what he's getting at there is in society there are seven mountains that kind of controls culture. I
Mhm.
can't name them all, but education, government, media. I can't think of the rest of them. And so white conservatives have taken what he's saying and they're trying to um, take control of those different areas of culture, right? Like never before. And so that's what we're seeing. That's exactly what we're seeing. And again, Black Americans, Chloe, are just too quiet. It's the reason why we do this show every week. It's the reason why we're trying to sound the alarm, blow the trumpet. These folks are turning back the hands of time. They are implementing Jim Crow 3.0. Take our words for it.
Yeah, and Ron DeSantis, he signed a bill into law in Florida called the Stop Woke Act, which basically, hinders schools' ability to teach about Black history, um, stopping the so-called critical race theory. We know that that was designed to be a attack on Black Americans as well, and that's spreading all over the country.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that speaking about Black issues like we do, and speaking up for the Black community, is linked with being woke. And now is what is that term? It's a
A pariah,
pejorative.
a pejorative.
Yeah, to want to speak up on behalf of our community and get people's eyes open. It's sad.
I think you tapped on another very important point there. Oh my God, you're so right. Terms that have been a part of the Black community for years, they have cleverly co-opted those terms
Hmm.
and have turned them into pejoratives, for their community, such as woke, critical race theory. I mean, woke is a good thing. I mean, woke just simply means that you are conscious as an African American, you are aware of the racial injustices in this country, and you're actively opposing them. And even some whites have embraced woke culture and have, down throughout history, the abolitionists, white abolitionists were woke. Those who stood with Dr. King were woke. And some of the young people we saw during the George Floyd protests were woke. And the white community said, hey, we got to take that word, we got to attack that word, we got to co opt that word and give it our meaning, as they did critical race theory. You, you're so right.
And make it bad and make it scary. Because I first heard about woke when I read The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B. Du Bois, where He's like, if you care about these issues as a black person, I mean, you have to be awake. That's really where I started. Okay, that's what woke means. Caring about these issues, being awakened to these issues, and the fact that I mean, it's now just they bastardized it. It's I hate it.
Great point. Great point. And W.B. Du Bois, obviously one of my favorite historians who wrote some great books, classics, still to this day. The Souls of Black Folk. I read it in college. Um, so, yeah, thank you for bringing him up. I do want to look at a comment that Sean Breezy um, uh, made here. He said, in my humble opinion, Obama was the most dangerous to us. Um, he sold us hope. Chloe, you want to comment on that?
Woo! Hey, Sean, you coming with the fire? You are coming with some fire. You know, my view of President Obama it's definitely changed throughout the years. Um, when he first ran and became president, I was very excited. I was very happy to see a black man as president. I would keep up with the politics of his campaign. I remember going to an Obama rally when I was in high school because he became president my freshman year of college. So I was very, very much into it. But I will have to say that throughout his 8 years of being president, he did disappoint me throughout those 8 years because I'm thinking, okay, we have a black man in president. He has a black wife, a black family. He talks about the impact of being a biracial black person has had in this country. And he has not done anything in my eyes at the time and even still now that really put a precedent and a focus on the black community. And I know that what a lot of people, what President Obama would likely say, or a lot of other people who believe like him as well. I came in when there was a housing crisis. I was focused on the healthcare, and these other issues. And whenever the country is going through a crisis like that, it affects the black community even worse. So I was wanting to make sure that we got these crises um, handled first because it will ultimately help the black community, which is okay, fine. But at the same time, I believe there should have been more of a focus on specific issues related to the black community to help us out even more than what he was doing for the general American population. In terms of him selling hope, he did sell hope because he said there was no white America, black America. He's the yes we can, all of that. So and unfortunately, once reality set in and he became president throughout his 8 years, there was a lot more that I believe he could have done and should have done. So I see where Sean is coming from with that comment. What are your thoughts, Dad?
Yeah, well, I think we all can agree that it would have been great for Obama to have done more for the black community. Um, there was so much more that could have been done. Um, but I take a different, I have a different perspective. In my eyes, the man is um, can almost do no wrong. I'll be honest with you. I, I coming from the generation that I came from, seeing the things that I saw, I never imagined a black man becoming president. Not, at least not in my lifetime. And when he was elected, Chloe, I went outside. I'll never forget. I was so emotional when they announced that he won. I went outside and I began to weep. I literally wept. You remember the picture of Jesse Jackson standing out there, I think, in Chicago, the night that Obama was declared the victor, and Jesse was out there crying.
Mm-hmm.
That was me too. I mean, I was crying like a baby. And all I could think about was my mother and my father, my parents, and how I know they never saw anything, and the things they dealt with, and the things my great grandfather, my grandfather, my ancestors dealt with in this country. Obama was what they dreamt about, but could never fathom it. He was everything that we had fought for was embodied in his and Michelle's stay in that White House that slaves built.
Even though he's not the direct descendant of black slaves.
Even though he's not the direct descendants of black slaves, he's still African American. He's still a black man and married to a descendant of slaves, direct descendants of slaves, and two beautiful daughters who are also descendants of black slaves. So could he have done more? Yes. But his presidency, just becoming president, said a lot. Said that black folks, the work, the blood, the sweat, the tears over the last 400, 375, 80 years finally paid off. That glass ceiling was broken. And then right behind Trump was the first black female. So we can critique their vice presidency and his presidency and find all kinds of issues. But I still think his presidency was transformative. Obamacare is helping a lot of people right now. The things that he did with the U.S. Department of Education, the black folks that he put on the federal court, on the federal bench, appointing the first black attorney general in Eric Holder, and then the first black female, Loretta Lynch. He was a pragmatist, and he knew that there were things he could not do. The Democrats had the Congress and the White House locked down, but for only 2 years. And he spent his political capital, on getting Obamacare passed. And by the way, let's not make light of the fact that the man saved the country.
Yeah.
The man saved the country. I still vividly remember, Chloe, when Treasury Secretary Paulson came out on a Thursday night and said, if the White House does not infuse our economy with trillions of dollars by tomorrow morning, our country will be non-solvent or insolvent. Obama took that situation and turned it completely around. The country was bleeding millions of jobs per month. When he finished, the country added millions of jobs. He literally saved the country. And he doesn't get enough credit for these things. Could he have done more for blacks? Maybe, but listen, and I'll stop here. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, when Obama was elected, it's my understanding that they went into a secret room and they said, they vowed, no matter what happens to us politically, our number one focus is to see to it that this black man is a failed president. We will fight everything he does. Everything. Even if it means we don't get reelected. Even if it means hurting our constituency. Even if it means hurting white people. We must make this black man a failure because this sends a terrible message. It says that we have lost this country as white people. And so he was restrained in what he could do because he can't get things done without Congress. So I think that sometimes we're too harsh on him.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that he was a transformative president, and he's my favorite president of my lifetime. And he's really what got me interested in politics and watching the news. I remember being in high school just watching CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, as much coverage as I could about the presidential election. I read all what, 3 of his books. So I agree that he will forever go down as having transformed American politics, being the first black president in office.
So Sean Breezy, we certainly appreciate your continued support of the channel and thank you so much. But I strongly disagree with you that Obama was the most dangerous president. I think that just flies in the face of history. I can think about Andrew Johnson. I think about Andrew Jackson. I think about, of course, Donald Trump. I think about these were slave holding presidents. These were evil men. These men literally committed genocide against Americans. There is no way in the world Obama was a worse president than any of those people. Yes, Sean, he could have done more. Put it this way: it certainly we hope he would have done more. Um, you know, and I think the point that Sean Breezy is making is Sean Breezy is basically saying he gave us all hope that things were going to be different, things were going to be better, that his very presence in the White House would make things just so much better. Blacks were getting ready to say, getting ready to really um, move, move up the ladder, and that didn't play out that way. So he gave us a false hope. Um, Again, I don't think. First of all, I think it was naive. I remember when Obama got elected, some people were saying we had entered into a post-racial society. I think all of that was naivete. To even think that America had changed because it had elected and reelected the first black president. So I wasn't all that hopeful from that standpoint. Yes, thank God we finally see a black man in the White House. But America has been the way it has been for 400 years. That man Obama was not going to be able to just change everything like that. So I understand what you're saying, brother, and I appreciate it, but I disagree with you.
We have some Facebook comments that from Brother Barry.
Yes, my good friend, Brother Barry, is in the house. Let me find him here. Okay. All right, so Brother Barry said, of course we need to be awoke because the Bible compels us to be awake and aware. Amen. Barry said he also cried when Obama was elected. And he also says something I think very insightful here, Barry. I appreciate this comment. He says that he believed Obama worked hard not to be the black people's president, but a president for all people, while still being unashamedly black and appointing and caring for black people. That's a great point. That's a great point, Sean Breezy. I hope you heard that. I hope you're still with us. That he wasn't just black people's president. He was everybody's president. Great point. All right, let's go back to the deplorables. Steve Bannon. That's who I want to talk about next. Now, he doesn't have the position, the power that these other people have. But let me tell you what I want to use Steve Bannon to say. Steve Bannon, Chloe, defied a subpoena issued by the January 6th committee. For that, he was tried and found guilty and sentenced to 4 months in prison. The judge over his case, a Trump appointee, essentially said you don't have to do those 4 months pending your appeal, which could take years. So, Steve Bannon, a rich white man who is an enemy of this country, gets treatment that you and my clients would never get. And it just shows you the two justice systems. It shows you the two criminal justice systems in this country. One for blacks, one for rich whites. And if you think, if you don't believe that, just look at Donald Trump. This man stole from our country very sensitive, top secret documents. And this is just a list of things that he has done to this country. And he likely will never be held accountable for anything that he's done because he's rich and white and a male. Let Skibo, JoJo, Bobo do a percentage of that, and they're going to throw the book at him. So I wanted to point that out about Steve Bannon.
Yeah, so he'll still be, out and about, making money, speaking out, even though he's been convicted and sentenced to, the 4 months fined. And there's a possibility he could even win on appeal, and not have stepped 1 foot in jail for it. So, and it really does highlight the differences in the criminal and justice system between blacks and whites. And I think it is a good showing that even, that people in Trump's orbit, you can be held accountable and you can be found guilty. So I'm hopeful that, what's happening in New York against Trump and Georgia, even federally, this might push for Trump to actually be held accountable for his actions and for the things that he said.
We hope.
And that's all it is now, hope.
Speaking of hope, Sean Breezy. Redina Ray Roebuck. Sister Ray, how you doing, sweetheart? From Greensboro, North Carolina. Now, I want to share a bit of personal information about Ray. I think that is very relevant to this conversation. Ray is a white sister. And Ray and I attended the same church in Greensboro, North Carolina. We sat under the same pastor. And that was, oh man, that's been 25, 30 years ago. And Ray, I remember so well. Ray, I believe, was like the only white member we had at that time, maybe 1 or 2 others. But oh boy, she is such a sweet spirit, such a sweet soul, such a sweet person. And there isn't a racial, some people say ain't a racial bone in his body. I'm going to say ain't a racial cell in Ray's body. I'm going to get down to the microscopic level, not a racial cell in her body, which I'm pointing that out to say not all white people are racist. I don't ever want anyone to ever take that away from our strong disdain for racial injustice. Because, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and history proves me correct, it was strong white Christian abolitionists who worked diligently to free the slaves. Blacks, we were not in a position during slavery to free ourselves. It took the sacrificial work of white abolitionists to push that forward with the help of blacks, especially men like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, and others. And then during the civil rights movement, Dr. King had many. I listened to Fannie Lou Hamer, one of my favorite civil rights leaders back in the 60s, a woman from Mississippi, uneducated woman, but very intelligent. And she said some of her closest friends in the movement were whites. And then look at all the whites that were in the streets protesting for George Floyd and dying and fighting. You remember the Charlottesville fiasco? Those were white people fighting those white racists.
Mm-hmm.
Heather Meyer, what was her name? Heather Heyer?
I think it was Hyatt.
I mean, she gave her life fighting for racial justice, a white girl. So don't you ever, nobody ever conclude that all white people, or even most white people, are white racists. White society, yes, that's fair, but not all white people. No way.
No. Some of my closest friends are white people who detest racism and who speak out against it. And like you said, that just throughout history, it is just
Love you,
factually
Ray.
false.
Love you, Ray. I'm sorry, Claire. Just love you.
But
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
it's just factually inaccurate.
No, please go ahead and finish your thought, because you're absolutely right. You grew up and you had the most diverse group of friends that I've ever seen. I mean, at your
To this day.
graduation, I remember your high school graduation, you had all kinds of people came to your graduation. I mean, it was like the UN. I mean, it was white, black, Hispanic, Asian. I mean, all kinds of sexual preferences. I mean, I mean, the most diverse group of people. So, and it's been that way always. Oh, did you lock up on me, Chloe?
Oh, I locked up, but I'm
Yeah,
back now.
you're free. But yeah, you've always had that diverse crowd of folks who just were drawn to you.
Always, 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 always. So us speaking up for black people, for our community, it is not a hatred
She
that
keeps
we are. I'm
you
pro
keep
oh.
yeah, I don't know what's going on. Do
So I
you
just
have
wanted to add that.
yeah, well, I don't think they heard it. Go ahead and say it again.
Yeah, so it's just factually inaccurate, and I don't want anyone listening to us to think that we hate white people or that we're implying that all white people are racist. It's just
We
not
don't even hate
true.
the races.
Exactly. We don't hate anyone.
Exactly.
We detest the racism, but we don't hate anyone. And it's just inaccurate. Like I remember we love buying furniture from the Amish. One of our most prized, family, or y'all is really y'all's, but but one of our most prized family possessions is a table, and handmade sculptured table that comes from the Amish community. And there's evidence that the Amish and the Quakers, they housed a lot of black people, and they were a part of the Underground Railroad. And then I love reading about all of the white abolitionists and white people who have fought for freedom and justice for black people throughout our country's history and given their life to it. So, but what we're talking about is, like you said, white society and the white privilege that comes from having a European Western centric type of government. That's what we're outraged about.
And that white privilege thing, I grew up in the country and had many, many close white friends, like you said, um, guys I played football with, and I can think of a bunch of them: Roger Davis, um, Tony, Jeff Rich, Clayton Cooper. I can sit here and name them. We played ball together, basketball, football, and um, so yeah, I mean, it's just not true that all white people are like that. And then that takes me back to Trump. Trump though seemingly made even non-racist white people seem like he had them to cross over. You know, a sort of a fear of the country being taken over by blacks and Latinos and all of that, and even them started buying into his message. Unfortunately, um,
Well, I was listening to a white comedian, Andrew Schultz, the other day. They were discussing the Kanye West wearing the White Lives Matter. And I mean, he's a pretty liberal guy. He's not a conservative or Trumpist whatsoever. But he was like, I mean, you're not going to get any white person to say that white lives don't matter because that'd be like saying our lives don't matter. And then he went into, of course, we know that, Black Lives Matter means it's not that white lives don't matter. It's just that we want to emphasize that black lives do matter. But I
right,
think he said something, and he's a comedian, so he's saying it kind of funny, but I think he hit to the heart of something that even the white people who are anti-racist and anti-Trump, there's still something within them themselves that still says, we still don't want to be erased. And I guess with, Obama becoming president and the black community and black people making strides and us speaking up and demanding justice for ourselves, they may feel like they're being erased. And I feel like Trump tapped into that with a lot of white people, even though themselves may not be racist, but it's a fear of of losing one's self in society or culture or something. I think that's what he tapped into.
great point. A fear of America becoming a non-majority white country,
Yeah.
that the culture changes and everything. So, yeah, Trump very, very effectively tapped into that fear. Absolutely. That's the reason why I think he is the most dangerous person of all the ones that we have listed there. As Obama's presidency was transformative, so was Trump's
It
in the
was.
wrong way, right? In the wrong way.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we're coming to a close here, Chloe. I just want to put up one more screen here and show that these are the companies that are financially supporting all Trump stuff, all the MAGA stuff. Of course, Fox News, and you see, I have Home Depot as the biggest thing up here because my research showed me that Home Depot has given GOP politicians, especially those who are election deniers, who don't believe Joe Biden is president. Home Depot has given them more than any company in America.
Mm.
Home Depot.
That's why I
Uh,
shop at Lowe's. I think their CEO was black
is he
the
still
last time
black?
I checked. I don't know if he still is,
Well,
but
I got to do better on that because Home Depot is right down the street and Lowe's is 10 miles away. But I'm going to make that switch because I don't want my dollars being used to support these GOP candidates. And I take that very seriously. I don't watch one of my favorite sports right now, football, for that. That's one of the reasons why I don't watch football because the NFL has identified itself as a very racist organization. So
And
Yeah, so
Lowe's, the CEO is still black. His name is Marvin Ellison.
all right, that's it. That's it. Folks, go to Lowe's. Stay away from Home Depot, who's taking our money and using it to harm us. So go to Lowe's. And then Tyson, the chicken company, John Deere makes the tractors, FedEx, another company that you use all the time, but all these people get Boeing, all these
Mm.
people are giving large sums of money to one other person I want to show up here who's also in a very critical position to harm black folk. All of these people. So Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Tommy Tuberville, Ted Cruz, senator from here. I think he's the worst senator in Congress. Tim Scott. All I can say is, bless you, Tim Scott. That's what the Bible says. Bless those who, All right. Clarence Thomas, and then this guy right here, Kevin McCarthy, who could become Speaker of the House in about 3 or 4 weeks if folks don't get out to vote. And he is a huge Trump supporter. He stood out against Trump when Trump calls January 6th, but then he folded and started seriously supporting Trump again. Kanye, Lord have mercy. Candace, oh my God. In my opinion, Candace is the dumbest black person in the country. I just said it. DeSantis, Abbott, Sam Alito is a firebrand U.S. Supreme Court justice who wrote the recent Brovanovich voting rights opinion, which did serious damage to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And Mitch McConnell has done all sorts of stuff to support white supremacy. He was the one who led the Senate against so many things. Obama, against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which could address police shootings. He led the Senate against the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. He took a Supreme Court justice pick from Obama. So many things he has done to attack blacks. Mitch McConnell.
Mm. I remember, wasn't it Mitch McConnell who's the one that said when Obama became president that they're going to make sure that he becomes a failed president?
Yes, he led
That
that.
tells you all you need to know about Mitch McConnell.
That's right.
And he did it all throughout Obama's presidency and Joe Biden as well.
Hey, you all, go over to TikTok, find the Defiant Lawyers, and join our community over there. Become one of our followers. We put very short clips of the same content on TikTok. We're trying to build our presence over there. Like I said earlier, we had just a couple of followers, and we put a couple of short videos up there. One of them got almost 40,000 views. And our followers increased from like a dozen to almost 1,000 overnight. So we want to build more. That's where the young people are. We want to get over there. So go over there, become one of our followers over there on TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
What's your handle on Instagram, Chloe?
The Duchess of Justice.
Yes, and we also have the Defiant Lawyers on Instagram. So go join both.
Link up with us. We're trying to build this community. Thank you all for joining us, making comments, interacting with us. We appreciate each and every one of you. We know that, your time is precious, and the fact that you are giving us your time by listening and interacting to it with us, we so appreciate it.
So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Peace. Hey.